The Imperial Guard is thousands of cultures, fighting styles, and traditions stuffed into flak jackets and pointed at the enemy. From the zealous deathcore Krieg who embrace battle death as sacred, to Catachan warriors whose physical prowess is legendary among Imperial forces. Over the next hour, I'll reveal how vastly different homeworlds forge distinctly specialized soldiers, each carrying their own burden and psychological scars. You'll discover how harsh environments shape not just military tactics, but the very soul of each regiment. By the end, you'll understand why these ordinary humans form the true backbone of humanity's survival across the galaxy. The backbone of the Imperium, understanding the Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard is just staggering in scale. We're talking numbers that would make your brain hurt. When I say they're the backbone of the Imperium, I mean it literally. They're everywhere, fighting on countless fronts across the galaxy. While a Space Marine chapter is limited to 1,000 warriors, a single Guard regiment can field 100,000 soldiers. And there are millions of them across the galaxy, each potentially fielding tens of thousands of fighters. The scale is beyond comprehension. What makes this even more remarkable is who these soldiers actually are. They're regular humans, not genetically enhanced super soldiers, not power-armored giants, just ordinary men and women with standard-issue laser guns and flak armor. They get a few weeks of training, a uniform that may or may not fit properly, and then they're shipped off to fight the most horrifying entities in the galaxy. And these threats are absolutely nightmarish. Tyranid Hive fleets strip entire planets of biomass in days. Necrons wield technology so advanced it resembles magic. Orcs grow stronger with each battle they survive. Eldar manipulate events through their ability to foresee the future. Worst of all, the forces of chaos warp reality and corrupt minds merely by proximity. These enemies would give even Space Marines pause, yet Guardsmen face them with equipment barely changed in 10,000 years. The Guard draws its true strength from diversity. Each regiment carries the distinctive traits, fighting styles, and cultural quirks of its homeworld. This diversity creates strategic advantages throughout the Imperium's forces. Jungle worlds produce expert ambushers and survival specialists. Hive worlds create soldiers who excel at urban warfare. Feudal worlds offer warriors with unshakable honor codes who fight effectively without modern logistics. There's no universal Imperial Guard template. Cadian regiments with a rigid discipline share little with Catachan jungle fighters who specialize in guerrilla warfare. Death Corps of Krieg soldiers, viewing death as atonement, approach combat entirely differently than Vostroyans, who preserve their firstborn sons' lives as precious family sacrifices. This patchwork army maintains cohesion through three primary mechanisms. First, the Imperial Creed, the quasi-religious worship of the Emperor drilled into every soldier. Second, the Commissariat, political officers authorized to execute anyone showing cowardice or heresy. A bolt pistol at the back of your head provides powerful motivation. Third, basic human survival instinct. In a galaxy where humanity faces constant extinction threats, soldiers from vastly different cultures find common cause. Environmental factors shape everything about these regiments. The Steel Legion of Armageddon specializes in rapid, mechanized warfare because their toxic homeworld makes staying stationary deadly. The Mordian Iron Guard, from a tidally locked planet where one side burns and the other freezes, developed extreme discipline to survive in overcrowded hive cities. These soldiers fight in perfect formation even under heavy fire because their very society depends on strict order. These environmental adaptations determine battlefield functionality. Tallarn Desert Raiders excel at mobile warfare because their hostile homeworld requires quick movement between shelters. Valhallan Ice Warriors specialize in attrition warfare because their frozen world demands endurance for survival. This specialization allows a Departamento Munitorium to deploy appropriate troops to specific battlefields across the galaxy. Regimental differences extend to equipment preferences and tactical approaches. Catachan troops favor massive knives and flamers. Vostroyan Firstborn use ornate, centuries-old weapons passed through generations. Death Corps engineers utilize specialized equipment for trench warfare. These adaptations directly impact battlefield effectiveness. What truly distinguishes the Imperial Guard is their stubborn determination. Regular humans achieve the impossible through numbers, sacrifice, and adaptation to overwhelming circumstances. There's something profoundly human about Cadians standing firm against Chaos Space Marines, or Catachan fighters defeating Tyrannid bioforms triple their size with combat knives and grit. The Imperial Guard embodies humanity at its most resilient. When 1 million guardsmen die taking a planet, the Imperium considers it a bargain. When a regiment holds against impossible odds, knowing reinforcements won't arrive in time, they do it anyway. They fight despite being utterly expendable. They endure casualty rates that would break any real-world army many times over, and still they advance when ordered. Cadian shock troops. Discipline in the face of annihilation. That willingness to face impossible odds reaches its pinnacle with the Cadian shock troops, who turned a planetary apocalypse into a battle cry. When Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade obliterated their homeworld, the surviving Cadians didn't crumble like you'd expect. They doubled down on their tradition so hard that Cadia stands became more than words. It became their reason to exist. The Cadian Gate represents the most strategically crucial location in the entire Imperium. Imagine a narrow corridor of stable space, the only reliable passage from the Eye of Terror into Imperial territory. Whoever controlled this region essentially held the lock and key to chaos incursions into real space. This was a front line in humanity's longest-running war. The planet Cadia itself stood as a fortress world entirely dedicated to one purpose: holding the line against the darkness that constantly threatened to spill forth. Think about growing up on a world where military service forms your entire cultural identity. Cadian children train with mock weapons instead of toys. They undergo military education from the moment they can walk. The common saying that Cadians are born with a laser gun in hand reflects our society's founding principle. Every citizen receives military training regardless of their eventual profession, creating a population where even bakers and merchants could be mobilized into effective fighting forces within hours. What's particularly interesting about Cadians is their physical adaptation to their environment. Their distinctive purple eyes are actually a mutation resulting from generations spent in proximity to the Eye of Terror. This mutation provides Cadians with a heightened awareness of chaos taint, making them particularly resistant to corruption and able to sense warp disturbances that other humans might miss. Their bodies evolved an early warning system against their ancient enemy. Before earning their colors and becoming full-fledged shock troopers, young Cadians served in White Shield regiments. These youth units handle reconnaissance and light infantry duties, proving themselves worthy of the Cadian name through actual combat experience rather than training exercises. This brutal but effective system ensures only the truly capable advance to represent Cadia on the galactic stage. The pinnacle of Cadian military excellence can be found in their elite stormtroopers, the legendary Kasrkin. These specialists receive the absolute best equipment available to non-Astartes Imperial forces. Carapace armor that can shrug off wounds that would obliterate standard flak armor. Hellguns that deliver concentrated energy blasts capable of punching through armored targets. And specialized vehicles and grav chutes for precision deployment. The Kasrkin are trained for missions that regular guard units couldn't handle but don't quite warrant calling in Space Marines. Surgical strikes, hostage extraction, assassination of enemy leadership, and similar high-risk operations fall under their jurisdiction. Their precision has earned them immense respect throughout the entire Imperial Guard structure. When the Kasrkin deploy, even veteran commanders take notice. During the 13th Black Crusade's early stages, the Cadians demonstrated their excellence at the Battle of Tirok Fields. Colonel Ursarkar Creed, leading a vastly outnumbered force, executed a brilliant flanking maneuver that trapped and annihilated the traitorous Volskani cataphracts. As the battle turned, Creed reportedly stood atop a burning Leman Russ tank, calmly issuing orders while laser fire scorched the air around him. His final command, "Stand fast, for Cadia stands," would later echo across the galaxy. Despite countless heroic stands like this one, the unthinkable eventually happened. Cadia itself was utterly destroyed. The regimental motto, "Cadia stands," transformed from tactical instruction to something far more profound. The destruction of their homeworld ignited an even more fanatical devotion to Cadian traditions. The phrase became the mantra of defiance, a reminder that as long as a single Cadian soldier continues to fight, Cadia itself continues to exist. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, maintaining their regimental structure, training protocols, and distinctive fighting style. Wherever they go, they carry the legacy of their fallen world, representing the Guard's ability to face annihilation without breaking. Most regiments would collapse after losing their homeworld. The Cadians did the opposite. They distilled their culture into its purest form, freed from geographical constraints. Their discipline intensified rather than diminished. This resilience stems from the Cadian understanding that their greatest strength was never their fortress world itself, but the unyielding human spirit it produced. Their training emphasized adaptability alongside discipline, creating soldiers who could function effectively even when all established protocols failed. When facing the literal end of their world, they simply applied this principle to the grandest possible scale. The Death Corps of Krieg, the science of sacrifice. Underneath these iconic gas masks, the Death Corps of Krieg aren't just soldiers. They're living apology letters written in flesh and blood. Unlike other regiments who fight to protect something, these clone-born warriors exist solely to die and sacrifice to the Emperor they believe their ancestors betrayed. What kind of military force views their own survival as a failure of duty? And how does an army built on self-sacrifice become one of the Imperium's most effective weapons? The answer lies in Krieg's blood-soaked history. Once a prosperous industrial world, Krieg's ruling class betrayed the Imperium, declaring independence and renouncing the Emperor. But not everyone agreed with this heresy. A colonel in the Planetary Defense Force remained loyal and unleashed the unthinkable: nuclear weapons against his own cities. What followed was a 500-year nuclear nightmare that transformed the planet into a radioactive hellscape where nothing could survive. Against all logic, humans still inhabit this poisoned world. The victorious loyalists, having won their civil war through self-destruction, developed a culture of atonement so extreme it barely resembles anything we'd recognize as human society. Every Krieger is raised with one understanding: their ancestors' rebellion was so heinous that the only suitable penance is death in the Emperor's service, a useful death that advances Imperial objectives. This radioactive inheritance forged their infamous Vitae Womb technology. Unable to produce soldiers naturally on their toxic planet, Kriegers utilize controversial cloning techniques to create millions of troops annually. The Adeptus Mechanicus views these practices with deep concern, but the Departamento Munitorium conveniently looks the other way. After all, who would reject an endless supply of fearless soldiers? From emergence from these artificial wombs, Kriegers enter a training regimen that would qualify as torture elsewhere. Their conditioning eliminates weakness and destroys individual identity, transforming them into instruments of imperial retribution. Their training emphasizes hazardous environment survival, combat proficiency, and the psychological acceptance of their expendability. You'll never see a Krieger's face. Those trademark greatcoats and gas masks serve as both practical protection against Krieg's toxic atmosphere and profound philosophical statement. By never removing their masks, Kriegers become an army of anonymous, interchangeable shadows. Like specters haunting the battlefield, more apparition than human. Each faceless soldier represents the collective guilt of a world, moving silently through war zones like the ghosts of Krieg's radioactive dead. The philosophy manifests directly in their battlefield tactics. The Death Corps specialize in trench warfare, siege operations, and attrition strategies that consume thousands of lives for minimal territorial gains. Where other regiments hesitate to charge into certain death, Kriegers advance with mechanical precision. Their entrenchment tools dig defensive positions and serve as brutal melee weapons when ammunition runs low. Their grenadier units take on the most dangerous missions with cold efficiency. In a bizarre reversal of normal duty, commissars assigned to Death Corps regiments prevent wasteful sacrifice rather than cowardice. While standard Imperial Guard commissars execute retreating soldiers, Death Corps commissars must restrain troops too eager to throw their lives away when survival would better serve the Emperor. These officers must convince death cultists that staying alive might sometimes be the more loyal choice. The psychological impact of facing Death Corps regiments creates unique terror. Their faceless appearance, silent advance through artillery barrages, and complete disregard for casualties unnerves even the hardened chaos forces. There's something fundamentally disturbing about humans who abandon self-preservation. It violates natural order in ways that even demons might find unsettling. Their mass production recruitment creates another reality. Death Corps soldiers are functionally identical and disposable. A Krieger doesn't dream of returning home or surviving their duty. They don't write letters or keep mementos. Their purpose is singular and absolute. There are no retirement plans or veterans' benefits. Just an endless production line of identical soldiers. What makes this regiment truly remarkable is their efficiency at transforming fatalism into military effectiveness. Their siege warfare expertise stands unmatched among human forces, with specialized equipment and techniques refined through centuries of bloody experience. Death Corps engineers have perfected trench systems, bunker assaults, and fortification breaches. They approach these grinding operations with clinical precision, specialists who've embraced their critical role in the Imperium's wars. Catachan Jungle Fighters, surviving the unsurvivable. If the Death Corps sees survival as weakness, the Catachan Jungle Fighters see it as an art form they've mastered through generations of brutal natural selection. Their homeworld is actively homicidal. Everything from the air they breathe to the ground they walk on plots their demise in creative ways. The local flora has evolved specialized killing methods. Flowers that shoot poisonous spores capable of melting human lungs are commonplace on Catachan, where such deadly encounters are merely a part of daily existence. This living nightmare produces soldiers with physical capabilities that push the boundaries of what's humanly possible. They're called baby Ogrins for good reason. These warriors pack muscle on muscles, standing tall with physiques that make professional strongmen look like malnourished children. Their true power lies in their hyper-awareness and survival instinct. Growing up on a planet where a moment's inattention means death develops reflexes and situational awareness that appear almost supernatural to others. The trademark sleeveless uniforms and red bandanas these warriors sport are practical adaptations for a regiment that relies on physical prowess and needs to move quickly through dense vegetation. The exposed arms serve as a visible display of the physical standard every Catachan maintains. In a culture where strength determines survival, these physical displays function as nonverbal communication among warriors who respect capability above all else. Catachan fighters bring jungle warfare to an art form. Their combat doctrine centers around ambush tactics and guerrilla warfare, approaches mirroring the predatory nature of their homeworld. During the Verdant campaign, a single Catachan squad eliminated an entire Tau Pathfinder team by transforming the jungle itself into a weapon. They redirected toxic vines to create natural barriers, used indigenous predators to mask their movements, and struck with such surgical precision that their enemies never even managed to fire a single shot. They appeared from nowhere, struck with overwhelming force, and disappeared back into the environment before reinforcements arrived. When it comes to weapons, Catachans have distinct preferences reflecting their fighting style. The Mark IV Laser Carbine is their standard-issue ranged weapon, but they truly excel in close-quarters combat. The infamous Catachan Fang, a massive combat knife measuring up to 20 inches of gleaming steel, serves as a cultural symbol and primary weapon wielded with deadly efficiency by soldiers who've been fighting with knives since childhood. Flamers and heavy bolters round out their arsenal as preferred special weapons, perfect for clearing those dense vegetation or eliminating multiple targets in close-quarters environments. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Catachan culture is their relationship with Imperial authority, particularly commissars. Where most regiments fear these political officers, Catachans have developed a reputation for commissar attrition. These hardened jungle fighters don't take well to outsiders telling them how to survive, and many commissars have met with unfortunate accidents shortly after being assigned to Catachan regiments. Reports of commissars going missing during routine patrols are surprisingly common. In their minds, this represents practical survival instinct, eliminating a liability on the battlefield. Their independent streak extends to their overall approach to warfare. Catachans respect results and capability, not rank or protocol. Their officers tend to be veterans who've proven themselves through survival and combat prowess rather than political connections or formal education. The chain of command exists because it works, not because regulations dictate it should. Legendary warrior Sly Marbo stands as a pinnacle of Catachan potential. This one-man army has achieved near mythical status with accounts of single-handedly engaging entire enemy forces. These stories spread among Imperial Guard regiments with equal parts awe and disbelief, made more remarkable because they come from a regiment not known for exaggeration. Catachans transform environmental horror into military advantage. When deployed to jungle environments, they operate with such natural efficiency that enemies often feel they're fighting the environment itself rather than human opponents. Trees become vantage points, undergrowth becomes cover, and natural soundscape masks their movements, creating psychological warfare amplified by genuine expertise. Their training regimen is life itself. By recruitment age, Catachans have already survived countless deadly encounters that would kill veterans from other worlds. Their basic training simply adapts survival skills to military objectives and teaches operation as part of a coordinated unit rather than as individual survivors. This background creates an interesting paradox. Catachans are fiercely independent, yet function cohesively as units. They understand that on their homeworld, lone survivors eventually die. Small groups with complementary skills survive. This translates to a battlefield approach where initiative and individual action are valued, but always in service to the squad's objectives. Tempest Scions, the Emperor's precision instruments. While the Catachans represent survival through sheer bloody-minded toughness, the Militarum Tempestus takes the opposite approach, clinical perfection through absolute control. These aren't soldiers who overcame their environment, they're humans engineered from childhood to become living weapons with surgical precision. The Tempestus Scions represent the Imperium's most unsettling experiment. What happens when you take orphan children, strip away their identity, and rebuild them into killing machines? Unlike most Imperial Guard regiments proudly displaying their homeworld heritage, Scions have no homeworld to call their own. They're collected across the galaxy, primarily orphans of Imperial officials, and raised in isolated Scala Progenium facilities where their past identity is systematically erased and replaced with absolute devotion to the Emperor. Consider this fundamental difference. Regular Guard regiments maintain cultural traditions and fighting styles passed down through generations, while Tempestus Scions undergoes standardized indoctrination so complete that the finished product barely resembles a normal human being. Their training program is deliberately brutal, designed to eliminate candidates who show weakness, independent thinking, or insufficient loyalty. Survivors emerge as hyper-specialized operatives with exceptional skills but severely stunted emotional development. On the battlefield, Scions stand apart through their superior equipment, creating visible disparities that often breed resentment from regular guardsmen. Scions carry hellguns, specialized hotshot laser guns, delivering significantly more punch than standard-issue weapons. Their carapace armor provides protection that regular flak armor simply cannot match. With grav chutes for precision drops and specialized tools for infiltration, these soldiers operate more like Space Marines than typical guardsmen. The Tempestus combat doctrine revolves around a single principle: surgical precision. Where regular guard regiments might deploy thousands of troops to capture an objective, like a sledgehammer cracking a wall, Scions function as a scalpel, making precise incisions exactly where needed. They operate in small, elite teams, striking critical targets with overwhelming force before extracting quickly, rarely staying to hold ground or fight prolonged engagements. This precision extends to their transportation methods. Breaking from the Guard's reliance on Navy pilots, Scions often pilot their own aircraft. Their primary insertion vehicle, the Valkyrie Airborne Assault Carrier, transports 12 fully equipped operatives while providing substantial fire support. For heavier firepower, they deploy Vendetta gunship variants with twin-linked laser cannons, perfect for eliminating armored targets. Vulture gunships complete their air arsenal, clearing landing zones with devastating firepower. Relations between Tempestus Scions and regular guard units remain complicated. Regular guardsmen view Scions with mixed awe and resentment. The Stormtroopers nickname carries both respect and derision. Beyond equipment disparities, fundamental philosophical differences create tension. Regular guard fight and die by the thousands shoulder to shoulder, while Scions complete precise operations, often without casualties, before disappearing back to their ships. The Commissariat manages this tension carefully, assigning officers specifically to Tempestus regiments to maintain discipline and mediate between these distinct branches of the Astra Militarum. Unlike commissars with Catachan units, who frequently suffer accidents, those working with Scions focus on directing their unwavering loyalty appropriately and preventing friction with regular units from compromising missions. Despite standardized training, different Tempestus regiments develop distinct specialties. The Iotan Gorgons execute decapitation strikes against enemy leadership. Capic Eagles perfect aerial deployment tactics beyond their drop troops' capabilities. The 55th Alphic Hydras master amphibious operations, while the 43rd Iotan Dragons excel in heavy weapons deployment. Each regiment refines basic Tempestus training into specialized doctrine, creating valuable force multipliers that provide capabilities turning the tide of otherwise unwinnable engagements when deployed alongside regular guard. When comparing Scions to other regiments, you're examining opposite approaches to warfare. Catachans embody natural selection and survival instinct. Death Corps soldiers embrace self-sacrifice as a cultural identity. Cadians represent disciplined professionalism. Tempestus Scions, however, demonstrate the systematic replacement of individual identity with engineered perfection. This makes them simultaneously effective and disturbing, the result of the Imperium attempting to bridge the gap between baseline humanity and Space Marines without genetic modification. The outcome? Soldiers executing missions with mechanical precision who struggle with basic human interactions, viewing reality entirely through the lens of their indoctrination rather than genuine human experience. The Vostroyan Firstborn, honor through generations. While the Tempestus Scions represent humanity's stripped of individuality, the Vostroyan Firstborn showcase the exact opposite. How cultural identity and family tradition can forge warriors bound by something deeper than any indoctrination. These soldiers fight for the Emperor while carrying the burden of washing away a 10,000-year stain on their collective soul through a tradition of sacrifice that defines their entire society. The Vostroyan regiments were born from shame. During the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor needed every available soldier, Vostroya chose to focus on manufacturing weapons rather than providing troops. They were an industrial powerhouse, and the leaders argued they could better serve by producing the tools of war rather than the warriors who wield them. It seemed logical at the time, but when the dust settled, the Vostroyans looked around at the devastated Imperium and realized their mistake. Their shame was overwhelming. Their response was a blood pact that had shaped Vostroyan society for 10 millennia. Every family must surrender their firstborn child to serve in the Imperial Guard, regardless of wealth, status, or influence. This creates regiments where each soldier embodies their family's most precious offering to the Emperor. Consider the story of Yuri Maxim, whose father placed his infant son's hand upon the ancient Lays rifle and whispered, "When you return with this weapon, you'll have redeemed generations." Many firstborns never see their families again, their sacrifice becoming part of the family's identity for generations. What makes this tradition even more remarkable is that these regiments have existed unbroken ever since their creation. The firstborn don't refresh their units with new recruits when casualties mount. They maintain the same regimental numbers, preserving an unbroken lineage stretching back thousands of years. This creates a core of veteran warriors surrounded by fresh arrivals, combining experience with new blood in a way few other Guard regiments can match. The bond between Vostroyan soldiers transcends typical battlefield camaraderie. They form a brotherhood of sacrifice, each understanding exactly what the other has given up by serving. This creates a unit cohesion that's exceptionally resilient. They fight for the Emperor, their shared heritage, and the honor of families they've left behind. Vostroyans are immediately recognizable on the battlefield by their distinctive appearance. Their fur hats, long coats, and elaborate facial hairs serve as symbols of cultural heritage worn proudly into battle. Their equipment follows the same philosophy, with weapons that are both functional and beautiful, ornate craftsmanship reflecting the world's industrial expertise. The Vostroyan command structure is built on experience rather than birth. While their society maintains a strong class system, with nobles traditionally holding officer positions, recent changes have started to break this pattern. Colonel Gregorius Sebastev of the 68th Vostroyan Regiment became the first lowborn officer to survive his service and return to Vostroya, making a significant cultural shift. This evolution extends to gender as well. Originally, the tradition specifically required firstborn sons to serve, but recently, this has evolved to require the eldest child regardless of gender. This adaptation demonstrates how a culture steeped in tradition can evolve while maintaining its core values. The Vostroyan combat doctrine perfectly reflects both their individual background and cultural values. They emphasize coordinated firepower and defensive operations rather than reckless advances. When every soldier represents a family's sacrificed firstborn, lives aren't thrown away carelessly. Their officers tend to be older than in other regiments, having earned positions through years of experience rather than political connections, creating leadership that values each soldier's life while still accomplishing objectives. Vostroyans are simultaneously some of the most selfless and proud soldiers in the Imperial Guard. They function as a unified brotherhood in the field, with discipline born from mutual respect and shared purpose rather than fear of commissars. Their weapons aren't merely tools, they're heirlooms, often centuries old but maintained to perfection, passed down through generations of soldiers. Each carries a history of previous battles and sacrifices, creating a tangible link to those who came before. A Vostroyan soldier firing their weapon continues a legacy that might be older than some Imperial worlds. This integration of family, tradition, and military service creates warriors with a unique psychological profile. When your entire society has been shaped around atonement for an ancient failure, when your very existence represents your family's sacrifice to repay that debt, your motivation runs deeper than simple patriotism or religious devotion. Vostroyans fight with the weight of 10,000 years of history on their shoulders. Retreat becomes more than tactical failure. It's a betrayal of everyone who came before you. Tallarn Desert Raiders, Masters of the Wasteland. What happens when the Iron Warriors virus bomb a paradise world in a toxic hellscape? Instead of extinction, you get one of the Imperium's deadliest fighting forces. The Tallarn Desert Raiders adapted to survive in poisoned wastelands, turning environmental hell into military advantage in ways that would make even veteran commanders nervous. The story of Tallarn is transformation through catastrophe, a lush paradise world teeming with life choked in poison gas, its surface scorched into endless desert by virus bombs during the Horus Heresy. The few survivors had two choices: die or adapt. They chose the latter, retreating underground and rebuilding their civilization beneath the toxic sands. Like a serpent shedding its skin, Tallarn's people emerged transformed by the wasteland that should have killed them. This crucible of survival created a society obsessed with efficiency. When every drop of water and breath of clean air is precious, you learn not to waste anything, including tactical advantages. The Tallarn adapted by necessity, developing a combat doctrine centered around rapid movement and decisive strikes. In a world where lingering on the toxic surface meant death, generations of warriors learned that speed equaled survival. This survival imperative manifests in every aspect of Tallarn warfare. Their armies don't plod forward in rigid formations like other regiments. They strike like desert lightning, fast vehicles racing across the dunes, infantry appearing from nowhere to deliver killing blows, then vanishing before the enemy can respond. The hostile surface taught them that static defense is suicide when the very air can kill you. Better to hit hard, hit fast, and disappear. Their distinctive flowing robes and wrapped headscarves, called keffiyeh or shemagh, serve critical survival functions. They protect against sandstorms, shield from scorching sun, and filter toxic air to extend survival time. Tactically advantageous, these loose-fitting garments provide excellent mobility while obscuring body shape, making Tallarn soldiers harder targets. Even their canvas boots are designed for silent movement across shifting sands. What truly sets the Tallarn apart is their weaponized mobility. Their tank commanders are legendary throughout the Imperium, having honed their skills during the infamous tank wars that followed their world's devastation. These battles were masterclasses in desert warfare tactics. Tallarn commanders read the desert like a map, using dunes for cover, predicting sand shifts, and executing maneuvers that would bog down less experienced units. Many Imperial officers mistakenly believe Tallarn tactics only work in desert environments. The fundamental principles, conservation of resources, mobility over mass, and careful application of force, translate to virtually any battlefield. A Tallarn commander approaches a dense jungle with the same calculating efficiency as their home desert, identifying key positions, planning rapid movements, and maximizing tactical advantages. The curved knives carried by Tallarn soldiers embody their combat philosophy. Unlike the massive blades favored by Catachans, these weapons are compact, practical tools designed for quick, efficient kills in close quarters. Nothing wasted, nothing flashy. Just like their approach to warfare, they strike precisely, eliminate threats, and move on before enemy reinforcements arrive. This practicality extends to their spiritual outlook. The Tallarn's faith in the Emperor runs incredibly deep, expressed through seeing him as the ultimate provider where resources determine life and death. This pragmatic faith makes them remarkably resistant to chaos corruption. They have no time for empty promises when survival demands constant vigilance and discipline. Environment shapes military doctrine. The Tallarn approach emerged directly from their planet's transformation. When your world becomes instantly lethal to unprotected human life, you develop a military strategy built around rapid movement and resource efficiency or perish. The Tallarn mastered this approach so thoroughly that Imperial commanders specifically request their regiments for operations requiring precision mobile warfare. What's impressive is that the Tallarn aren't genetic anomalies like Catachans or zealots like Kriegers. They're ordinary humans who adapted through discipline, strategy, and determination. Their excellence comes from generations of practical wisdom accumulated in the harshest conditions. In vehicle warfare, Tallarn armored columns appear suddenly from behind dunes, strike with devastating precision, then disappear before enemy guns range them. This supplies generations of survival knowledge transformed into military doctrine. Every fuel drop is precious, every exposed moment dangerous, every shot must count. The Tallarn understand that terrain can be a weapon more powerful than any laser gun. They turn hostile environments against their enemies. Unfamiliar foes find themselves lured into positions where sunstroke, dehydration, and disorientation do half the Tallarn's work for them. By the time enemies realize they're fighting both the Tallarn and the environment itself, it's usually too late. Armageddon's Steel Legion, industrial might made manifest. From toxic wastelands to mechanized warfare, if the Tallarn rely on stealth and precision, the Steel Legion of Armageddon answers with industrial firepower and relentless momentum. On Armageddon, survival doesn't come from blending into the environment, it comes from conquering it with steel and fire. The Imperial world of Armageddon presents a unique problem. How do you defend a planet that keeps getting invaded by the same enemy over and over again? The Steel Legion's answer is simple. You industrialize warfare itself. Unlike most regiments that develop tactics based on their environment, the Steel Legion has weaponized their entire industrial complex. When orcs invade, and they always invade, the factories don't stop production. They just switch from civilian goods to war machines. Their distinctive mustard yellow greatcoats serve as practical protection against the toxic ash wastes covering much of Armageddon's surface. Combined with rounded bull helmets, gas masks, and heavy boots, Steel Legion soldiers become armored titans of industry, walking environmental suits against a deadly atmosphere. The yellow coloration provides decent camouflage in the ash wastes, though camouflage becomes secondary when advancing with columns of battle tanks. What defines the Steel Legion is their mastery of heavy machinery. Their battlefield formations deploy hundreds of tanks, where other regiments field dozens. Leman Russ battle tanks lead their charges, with Vanquishers serving as command vehicles. Artillery forms the backbone of their strategy, with basilisks, bombards, and manticores delivering devastating firepower. Against massive orc war machines, they deploy super heavy vehicles like Baneblades and Shadow Swords, a survival necessity when facing endless green hordes. The Steel Legion's crucial advantage lies in their relationship with the Adeptus Mechanicus. They maintain a partnership that keeps their vehicles operational through extended campaigns. During the Battle of Ash Ridge, when orc saboteurs damaged the cooling systems of an entire tank column, embedded tech priests worked through artillery barrages to restore functionality within hours, allowing the Steel Legion to launch a decisive counterattack. This technical cooperation provides logistical capabilities other regiments can only envy. Their combat doctrine functions as a mechanical orchestra, infantry, armor, and artillery in perfect coordination. Mechanized infantry execute rapid attacks with Chimera APCs at the forefront. The Steel Legion excels at quickly shifting forces to threaten sections of the front line, essential mobility when outnumbered 10 to 1. When orcs inevitably breach outer defenses, the Steel Legion transforms from open-field mechanized warfare to urban combat. Each hive city on Armageddon stands as a fortress with pre-planned defensive positions and supply caches. Steel Legion's soldiers train extensively for room-to-room fighting, knowing they'll eventually defend their homes against greenskins invaders who breach the outer walls. Leadership within the Steel Legion has become forged through constant warfare. General Kurov commanded Imperial forces during the Third War for Armageddon, coordinating diverse forces from across the Imperium. Commissar Yarrick became humanity's defiant symbol against the greenskin threat through multiple wars. Colonel Sarin of the Armageddon 101st commanded Hive Hell's Reach's defense when all seemed lost. The Steel Legion's true, remarkable quality is their psychological resilience. They inhabit a world where massive orc invasions occur so frequently, they have their own numbering system. While the first war for Armageddon involved chaos, the second and third marked only the largest of countless orc wars. Under pressure that would break most Imperial citizens, Armageddon's people demonstrate grim determination bordering on fatalism. The Third War became so desperate that 5 Death Corps of Krieg regiments deployed to defend Hive Tartarus. Even fighting alongside these fanatical Death Seekers, the Steel Legion maintained their industrial efficiency in warfare. The Steel Legion weaponizes their toxic environment. Their understanding of Armageddon's deadly atmosphere allows them to predict gas and chemical weapon dispersal patterns, creating a home field advantage invading forces cannot match. Their vehicles use specialized filters, and their laser guns function reliably in ash storms that jam conventional weapons. Most impressive is how they've transformed their greatest weakness, constant siege, into strength. Every citizen knows evacuation routes to the nearest shelter. Children learn vehicle identification before reading, distinguishing friendly Lehman Rust patterns from orc battle wagons. Factory workers can switch from civilian goods to ammunition production within hours of an alarm. The Steel Legion has industrialized survival itself. Their society functions around the certainty of the next invasion, responding to extraplanetary threats with resigned efficiency that most worlds reserve for natural disasters. They don't hope the orcs won't return perfect order in a chaotic galaxy. From survival through industrial might to survival through perfect order, the Imperium's regiments take wildly different approaches to staying alive. What kind of nightmare world produces soldiers who refuse to take cover, advance in dress uniforms, and maintain parade formations even under heavy fire? The Mordian Iron Guard are the physical embodiment of humanity's desperate need for order in a universe gone mad. Imagine living on a world where billions of people are crammed into a narrow twilight band between scorching heat and freezing darkness. Every inch of space matters. Every resource is carefully allocated, and the slightest disruption to order could mean death for thousands. That's Mordian, and it explains everything about its infamous Iron Guard regiments. When your entire civilization balances on the edge of collapse, formal structure becomes more than tradition. It becomes survival. The Mordian Iron Guard takes this principle to the battlefield, creating one of the strongest yet most effective fighting forces in the Imperial Guard. These soldiers fight in immaculate dress blue uniforms with red facings, complete with brass buttons and peaked caps. They advance across battlefields on perfect parade ground lines while enemies rain death upon them, refusing to break formation or take cover. To outsiders, this looks like suicidal insanity. To the Mordians, it's the only logical approach to war. Their distinctive uniforms aren't vanity, they're a statement of philosophical purpose. The Iron Guard believes that appearance and discipline are fundamentally inseparable. A soldier who allows mud on their boots might later allow fear into their heart. This psychological effect intimidates enemies and inspires allies. Many Chaos cultists have broken and fled when facing the unnerving sight of Mordian regiments marching steadily forward through a hail of fire without flinching. Their combat doctrine revolves around synchronized volley fire and coordinated bayonet charges. Iron Guard regiments deliver devastating fusillades with each soldier shooting at exactly the same moment, creating walls of energy that stop even orc charges. When the enemy weakens, their bayonet charges advance with mechanical precision, every soldier moving in unison like a single killing machine with hundreds of blades. The Mordian square formation showcases their effectiveness in battle. Placing soldiers back-to-back facing outward allows them to repel attacks from any angle with coordinated volleys. During the Battle of Mordian, an Imperial commander observed, "The Iron Guard's discipline proved decisive against overwhelming odds. They maintained their formations and unleashed precise volleys of fire that were crucial in repelling the demonic hordes." Leadership in Mordian regiments defies typical Imperial practice. Officers maintain rigid discipline while leading exclusively from the front, sharing exactly the same dangers as their soldiers. Despite extraordinarily high officer casualty rates, this creates unmatched unit cohesion. Mordian officers earn their positions purely through experience and dedication, creating powerful bonds between leaders and troops. The Iron Guard's tight, disciplined ranks maximize combined firepower and present an unbreakable front. During the Macarian Crusade, Mordian regiments faced Chaos Space Marines who expected them to scatter under heavy bolter fire. Instead, the Iron Guard closed ranks when soldiers fell and continued advancing, eventually overwhelming the traitor Astartes through sheer discipline. The Battle of the Marble Garden further demonstrated their effectiveness when a single Mordian company held off repeated Eldar attacks. The aliens' lightning raids bypassed Imperial defenses, but each time encountered a Mordian square that repelled them with fire from all directions. Despite heavy casualties, the Iron Guard forced the Eldar to withdraw completely. What's remarkable about the Iron Guard is that they're ordinary humans who rely entirely on discipline and unit cohesion. They incorporate sanctioned psychers and heavy weapons teams into their rigid formations, with specialists maintaining the same immaculate appearance as line infantry. During one engagement, a Mordian heavy weapons team continued operating their autocannon with perfect efficiency, even as their position was bombarded by artillery, reloading and firing as though on a practice range. The Iron Guard's influence extends beyond combat. When stationed on Imperial worlds, their appearance and discipline often shame local PDF forces into improving their own standards. Several planetary governors have requested Mordian regiments specifically to instill discipline in their troops through example. Behind their perfect uniform lies a deeper truth. The Mordian Iron Guard represents humanity's response to living in constant proximity to death. Their overcrowded homeworld creates a society where individual actions can have catastrophic consequences for thousands. Where a Catachan learns to survive through adaptation and a Krieg soldier through sacrifice, a Mordian survives by becoming a perfect, predictable component in a greater machine. United in diversity, how the Imperial Guard functions as a whole. Imagine trying to coordinate an attack between soldiers who believe death is glorious, troops who refuse to break formation even under fire, and fighters who only trust guerrilla tactics. The Imperial Guard somehow turns this recipe for disaster into humanity's greatest weapon, through methods that are equal parts brilliant and terrifying. What looks like chaos from the outside is actually a carefully orchestrated system designed to leverage the Imperium's greatest asset, its diversity of specialized human fighters. The Departamento Munitorium, the bureaucratic nightmare responsible for equipping and organizing the Guard, has developed sophisticated methods for turning potential battlefield disasters into tactical advantages. When you put a Mordian officer who insists on perfect parade formations next to a Catachan commander who wants to ambush from the jungle, you're basically asking for a fistfight before the enemy even arrives. Standardization serves as a Guard's secret weapon. Every lasgun fires the same power pack, whether held by a Cadian or a Krieger. Every Chimera transport accepts identical replacement parts, regardless of whether it carries Tallarn Desert Raiders or Steel Legion mechanized infantry. This logistical masterpiece enables regiments to share ammunition when supplies run low and salvage vehicle parts across different units. The Munitorium functions like a massive machine where each component, though distinctly designed, connects perfectly with others. They ensure standardization while allowing local variation in equipment aesthetics, because they know a Vostroyan would rather die than use an unadorned weapon. The real genius lies in how the Guard deploys these different fighting forces. The Munitorium recognizes each regiment's unique strengths and deploys them accordingly. Catachans navigate dense jungle vegetation effortlessly because it resembles their homeworld. The Death Corps Krieg excels at siege operations, happily digging trenches for months while enduring horrific casualties. This strategic specialization transforms apparent weaknesses into tactical flexibility. When regiments must work together despite contradictory warfare approaches, commissars bridge the gap. These intimidating figures in black coats carry bolt pistols and authority to execute anyone showing cowardice or insubordination. The best commissars act as cultural translators between regimental philosophies, knowing when to let Catachans operate independently and when to integrate them with Mordian formations. They understand which regiments need strict discipline and which respond better to respect for their traditions. As Colonel Rhyme of the 103rd Cadian reportedly said after the Palexian campaign, "The Guard works because we're different, not despite it. Alone we're specialists, together we're unstoppable." This sentiment perfectly captures how regimental specialization creates battlefield synergy when properly coordinated. The Imperium invests heavily in training officers who can operate outside the regimental comfort zones. These individuals become critical connective tissue in combined operations, learning to speak the tactical language of other regiments and finding compromises that leverage everyone's strengths. Several Imperial worlds specialize in producing these adaptable command personnel. Officers who can tell a Krieger when to stop digging trenches and start advancing, or explain to a Mordian why breaking formation might actually be necessary. The shared faith in the Emperor provides another unifying element. When regiments with opposing tactical doctrines clash, Imperial priests remind them of their common purpose. This religious framework gives different soldiers a shared language and value system. A Mordian might see perfect order as the Emperor's will, while a Catachan might believe surviving impossible odds reflects the Emperor's strength. But both serve the same master. The administrative feat required to track, deploy, and supply these disparate forces across millions of worlds would overwhelm most military organizations. But the Imperium has turned bureaucracy into an art form, with countless administratum adepts tracking every regiment, shipment, and deployment order. Guard integration includes strategic limitations on regiment arsenals. While standardization aids logistics, it also prevents rebellion. No single regiment possesses a complete arsenal capable of sustained independent operations, meaning traitor regiments can't immediately field full complements of heavy weapons, air support, and specialized equipment without capturing additional materials or finding allies. The Imperial Guard's true strength emerges when specialties complement each other on the battlefield. Tallarn mobile columns rapidly reposition to exploit openings created by Krieg siege operations. Mordian Iron Guard holds critical choke points, while Catachan infiltrators eliminate enemy heavy weapons. Cadian fire teams provide covering fire as Steel Legion mechanized units execute lightning strikes against weakened positions. This symphony of specialized warfare capabilities, orchestrated by the Munitorium standardization system, transforms the Guard from a collection of desperate regiments into humanity's most formidable fighting force. Ordinary heroes. The Imperial Guard versus Space Marines. The Imperial Guard's combined arms approach makes them formidable against most enemies. But how do they stack up against the Emperor's own transhuman warriors? When a regular guardsman stands next to a Space Marine, the difference is stark, like comparing a flashlight to a tank cannon. Yet somehow, these ordinary humans with their standard-issue laser guns are the true workhorses of the Imperium, not the genetically engineered super soldiers. How many guardsmen equal one Space Marine? This calculation, practically a drinking game in Imperial taverns, misses what makes the Guard special. As one Imperial historian notes, the heroism of the Imperial Guard comes from facing the same horrors as Space Marines with nothing but faith, laser guns, and sheer human determination. Space Marines are superhuman in every way, fighting for days without sleep, surviving fatal wounds, bringing centuries of combat experience to battle. Their enhanced bodies withstand toxic atmospheres unprotected, and their reflexes are fast enough to catch bullets barehanded. Against this backdrop, what chance does a normal human with a few months of training have? On paper, none. But the Imperial Guard fights across 1 million worlds with boots on the ground. For every Space Marine, there are millions of Guardsmen. While a Space Marine chapter might be annihilated by casualties from a single campaign, the Guard can absorb staggering losses. This is their true strength. Leveraging astronomical numbers, diverse specializations, and combined arms tactics, rather than matching Marines in individual combat. The Imperial Guard embraces what makes humans effective when working together. Catachan ambush tactics, Krieg siege warfare, Tallarn mobile columns, and Cadian fire discipline. These specialized approaches allow ordinary humans to achieve extraordinary results through cooperation rather than individual heroics. The relationship between guardsmen and their transhuman allies is complex. There's genuine awe seeing an 8-foot-tall warrior in ceramite plate armor charging enemy lines inspires even hardened veterans. There's gratitude when Marines break sieges or eliminate threats beyond human capability. But there's also resentment at being overshadowed by the Emperor's finest. Guardsmen know they're expendable in a way Space Marines aren't. They know a single Marine receives resources that could equip an entire Guard platoon. When histories are written, it's usually the Marines who get the glory. When these forces work together, a natural division emerges. Guardsmen secure perimeters, hold territory, and provide logistical backbone that allows Space Marines to focus on surgical strikes against enemy leadership, critical objectives, and impossible missions. A Space Marine squad might eliminate an enemy warlord, but the Guard holds the ground afterward, sometimes for decades. What's remarkable is that humans remain essential despite the capability gap. The Imperium couldn't function with only Space Marines. There simply aren't enough to hold a galaxy-spanning empire. Space Marines win battles, but countless guardsmen across a million worlds hold the Imperium together. During joint operations, when PDF forces are overwhelmed by threats like Tyranid splinter fleets, Imperial Guard reinforcements establish defensive lines and fortified positions. They hold for weeks or months, suffering horrendous casualties, but maintaining positions. When the situation reaches critical mass, Space Marines might teleport directly to the Tyranid Hive node, eliminating the control creature and throwing the swarm into disarray. To protected civilians, Marines are saviors, but the Guard bought the time for that strike. This relationship reflects different Imperial roles. The Guard holds the line, dying standing if necessary, while Space Marines break the enemy. Space Marines are surgical instruments, precise, powerful, but limited. The Guard functions like an immune system, present everywhere, constantly adapting, capable of absorbing tremendous damage while keeping the Imperium functioning. What truly makes the Guard remarkable is their ordinary humanity. They don't have two hearts, or acid spit, or reinforced bones. They can't commune with the Emperor through gene seed or live for centuries. They're farmers, factory workers, hive scum, and nobles given a laser gun, flak armor, and orders to hold against mind-breaking horrors. And somehow, they do it. Day after day, world after world, despite being outmatched by nearly every enemy. Their sacrifice testifies to humanity's endearing spirit against overwhelming odds, a beacon of hope in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. The Guard stand against the tide, even facing certain death, powerfully symbolizes the Imperium's resilience. And this is why the Imperial Guard stands as humanity's greatest triumph in the 41st millennium. When a Cadian platoon holds the line until reinforcements arrive, despite knowing none are coming, or Tanith scouts complete their mission despite being surrounded by enemies who outnumber them 100 to 1, that's the Guard at its finest. The Imperial Guard triumphs through determination, tactical flexibility, and the willingness to sacrifice. Their power lies in adapting and enduring across 1 million battlefields. What makes ordinary humans stand against the galaxy's horrors? The answer echoes through every trench and battlefield. Unity and diversity, unwavering resolve, and countless sacrifices that ensure humanity's survival in the grim darkness of the far future.